This is the Dirt Track Flashback Podcast with Toby LaGrange. Welcome everyone to episode number 2 of the Dirt Track Flashback Podcast with yours truly, Toby LaGrange. For this episode, we take a trip back to the year 1998 and review the July 1st broadcast of This Week on Dirt, which was hosted by Doug Logan and narrated by Paul Small. The episode would include video wrap-ups of 3 School Bandit Racing Super Dirt Series events, a spotlight on Joe Plazek and his points battle at the Canandaigua Speedway, a tribute to a young racer gone far too soon, and a dynamite Weekend Wars segment. On Wednesday, June 24th, the School Bandit Racing Super Dirt Series made its way to the Fonda Speedway, where it did not take long for storylines to develop. First, third-generation driver Ronnie Johnson had taken over the Bobar Racing 12B from A.J. Romano, and then once racing got going, heavy favorite Danny Johnson would tangle with Orange County Fair Speedway veteran Richie Urich during heat race action, forcing him to a backup car. The sensational one, Jimmy Horton, in the Faust M1, and Randy Snyder will lead the 32-car field down to the green with everyone cleaning green initially. Several drivers would suffer bad luck in the early stages, including the aforementioned Danny Johnson with a flat tire. Barefoot Bob McCready had rear-end issues. In fact, the entire rear end came out of number 9. And Vic Coffey, who spun the 32C on the backstretch and was clobbered by Ronnie Johnson and Jack Cottrell. The early spotlight was on Kenny Tremont Jr. The recently retired Sand Lake Slingshot had some strong runs during his career along the banks of the Mohawk River, and on this night, it was certainly one of them. After starting 16th, he was on the move, and eventually took over the lead. Unfortunately, though, for Tremont, so was the infamous Budweiser number 3 of Brett Hearn, and former track regular Pat Ward with a Finch-owned number 56. Ward was so strong that, according to Paul Small, Hearn thanked him after the race for showing him the fast lane. Ward would suffer a flat tire around lap 80. On the restart, Hearn would now be close enough to Tremont to challenge. However, he had lost a cylinder on the number 3. It may have helped him, though, as he would get alongside the Tremont machine and then take the lead and lead the rest of the way. Hearn picked up the win over Tremont, Billy Decker, Jimmy Horton, and Doug Hoffman. Sometimes the sweetest win is the one you do not expect to win, Hearn said. We lost a cylinder just before halfway of the race. I really just expected to stay out there and run for a top 10 finish. The track started to slick up, and I guess one cylinder less was better at the end. Tremont, meanwhile, was left shaking his head. I don't know. He's always got something, Tremont said. He loses brakes or blew a head gasket or has a tire going down. He wins more races with half a car than I have ever seen in my life. I don't think it mattered if he has 8 cylinders or 6 or 5 or 4. He just goes well. Pat Ward had yet to win his first Super Dirt Series event coming into the night, and as fate would have it, and some bad luck, that remained true when the night was over. I feel like I'm just jinxed in the longer races, Ward said. I know a possible win is just around the corner if we keep working as hard as we are. John Finch and the guys are doing a good job, so possible we will get them at the next one. Joe Plazek came to the 1998 season looking for 3 consecutive track championships at the Canandaigua Speedway, of course now called the Land of Legends Raceway. Plazek was the subject of the A-Plus Track Talk, where they mic'd him up as he talked to his crew, track officials, and others in the pit area. This segment offered a great view of what happens in the pit area that many who sit in the grandstands did not get to see back then. And of course, I'm not going to go into everything that Plazek said, as without the video, it can lose its context. The Saturday, June 27th show at the Canandaigua Speedway would see Danny Johnson battle Gary Tompkins early in the feature event. Johnson, who was behind the wheel of the Thumb Racing 12T, would go 3 wide with Tompkins and Chuck Hebing before taking the lead from Hebing. For those newer race fans, this is the same Chuck Hebing that is one of the top dogs in the Northeast 360 Sprint Cars action these days. Bob McCready would drop out early with mechanical issues, while Jim Burke wrecked down the front stretch only to be clipped by Bobby Varon. Varon had been calling Canandaigua home in 1998. Johnson would take the win over Ward, Plazek, Billy Decker, and the bug chaser Randy Ross owned number 91, and Tompkins. The previous Sunday, Northeast Racing lost a rising star in the form of Barbara Luce, and the folks at This Week on Dirt paid tribute to her during the broadcast. Luce was a dirt sportsman driver out of New Jersey who called the Orange County Fair Speedway home. The Super Dirt Week Hard Charger Award winner for the Sportsman Division, was killed in a highway accident a few days earlier. The Skull Bandit Racing Super Dirt Series for Big Block Modifieds moves to Western Pennsylvania for 2 nights of racing action on Sunday and Monday, June 28th and 29th. On Sunday, it was not only my 19th birthday, but the day that the stars and cars of the series headed to the Tri-City Speedway for a $10,000 to win show. Now, that was big money back then. Jimmy Horton took the early lead in the 98-lap event, but then suffered a flat tire, handing the lead to Doug Hoffman. Hoffman suffered the same fate not long after. This gave the lead to Brett Hearn, with Kenny Tremont Jr. second, Alan Johnson third, and the Randy Sherlock number 10, and Bob McCready fourth. In the end, though, Hearn would pick up the win over McCready, Steve Botcher, Johnson, and Tremont. I knew that this race paid $10,000 to win on my way here, Hearn said. When I was on the racetrack, the only thing that mattered was cutting my laps good and clean and staying out of trouble. I wasn't thinking of the $10,000 until the race was over and my guys mentioned it. Botcher, though, he had a good run and is headed to Syracuse. It feels great to have a spot for Syracuse, Botcher said after finishing third. It's the first time in a big block that I have ever had one. You go up there a lot more relaxed. With the heats down, it's a lot tougher to get in, so unless we have a major disaster, we are in. And in, of course, is into the Syracuse 300, which, was the Miller High Life 300, etc. throughout the years. I think it was the Eckert 200 and 300 back then, but I have to double check on that. Of course, I probably should double check that before I started the broadcast, but that's okay. We will go on forward to Lernerville. And on Monday, June 29th, the series headed there, which is just south, about 30 minutes or so south of the Tri-City Speedway out there in western Pennsylvania. Mother Nature was definitely on everyone's mind on this night. The track was very tacky and heavy and produced some exciting moments. Hearn would suffer issues early and ended up 8th in the final rundown. The Doctor, Danny Johnson, would battle Tim Fuller early, with Craig Von Doren and Dwayne Howard closing in. Von Doren took the race lead from Johnson just before halfway, with rain looming. The rain started to fall just past the halfway point, with Johnson catching Von Doren. Johnson made the move on lap 55, and 6 laps later, the skies opened up. After a 40-minute rain delay, the race was called complete. Johnson was the winner over Von Doren, Howard, Billy Decker, and Tim Fuller. He got me, so I had to run him down, Johnson said. I got a little momentum on him and got the lead coming out of turn 4. Craig Von Doren, though, he took it in stride. It's one of those deals, Von Doren said. We snuck by him for the lead, and he took us to school. We raced him earlier this year at Susquehanna, now called Map Speedway, and we got the upper hand on him a couple of times, but he got us tonight. One of the more popular segments back before streaming allowed you to see almost every race there is was the Weekend Wars. This episode would be no exception. On June 27th at the Lebanon Valley Speedway, Kenny Tremont Jr. took the lead for Mike Benson and brought home the win over Brett Hearn, Benson, Maynard Ferret, and Donnie Ackner. At the Orange County Fair Speedway on June 27th, Frank Cozy would take the lead from Chuck McKee on lap 15 and bring home his first win of the season over McKee, Carl Pittenger, Jeff Hetzler, and Mike Petruska. Tim Heinle picked up the win at the Accord Speedway after a last lap turn 4 contact with Rich Rickey Jr. on June 26th. AJ Romano put his own number 16 in the victory lane at the Fonda Speedway during the Dirt Modified feature event on June 27th. And he took the win over Lou Lazzaro, Mike Romano, Jack Johnson behind the wheel of the Caprera Racing-owned FX1, and Frank Horde Sr. At Can-Am on June 27th, Billy Wilcox battled Tim McCready to the checkers to take the win. Gary Tompkins battled Steve Payne to the finish to win the July 26th feature at the Black Rock Speedway, now called Outlaw, but I prefer calling it Dundee. Pat Ward cleaned the 50-lap 9-point event at the Cayuga County Fair Speedway on June 28th over Gary Tompkins, Joe Plazik, Tom Kinsella, and Scotty Prentice. Of course, it was non-point because the Super Dirt Series, was out in western Pennsylvania at the Tri-City Speedway. The Dirt Motorsports Driver of the Week was Brett Hearn for winning back-to-back Skull Bandit Racing Super Dirt Series events at Fonda and Tri-City. And that'll do it for the show and the wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this trip back in time to 1998 via This Week on Dirt. So until next time, be sure to stay safe and support those that support racing. And the words of Doug Logan, so long for now.